everybody. It's great to be back on the Results Podcast. My name is Steve Mills, and we're here really to share some tried, tested, and proven ideas that will help your business. Now, today, I'm going to be talking about IP, intellectual property, which is an area of business that, to be honest, I know absolutely. Well, let's just say you could write it on the back of a postage stamp, I think. You know, I'm not an expert in it, but the good news is I've got an expert with me. His name is John Pryor. He's an expert in intellectual property. Welcome to the conversation, John, and thank you ever so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thanks for such a glowing introduction. Much appreciated.
That's okay. Do you want to kick off by just telling everybody a little bit about your expertise and what you do?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so as Steve said, I'm John Pryor. I run a business called Exalt IP. And for more than 2 decades now, I've been helping businesses protect their competitive advantage by using intellectual property. And these businesses are usually, but not always, needing to protect the value in their creativity and their innovations. And hopefully through the course of our conversation, Steve, you'll see that you have a business that's rich in intellectual property. And that's really my passion. Most people don't really see what they've got, and hence when they come to me, it's a little bit too late. So, businesses I work with usually have got a couple of approaches, 3 approaches maybe. It's not for me, and I don't really understand it. I've kind of done some of it, or blimey, I've just been caught out. And so what I'm trying to do is to bring people further around, start earlier so they don't get caught out. Because if you think you ought to trademark your business and you think you ought to get around to doing it, and then you forget or you don't bother, and somebody else steals that from you, you've lost all that value that you've wrapped up in that name sometimes. So, being ahead of the game is really important, and that's what I'm about, and that's why I've been doing this for so long, and that's why I'm so passionate about.
Fantastic. It is an area that I think, as a small business owner, we I sort of know, I've heard of, and I know, I know enough, as a reasonably intelligent person to know it's something I should or could do. What I don't know is anything about how to do it, what I could protect. So what would it give me? You said there's loads of things I could benefit from. What advantages, what would I get from, speaking to you and getting your advice and protecting my business?
Well, the reality is, Steve, you and I are both from Sheffield, and we've got some sort of steel heritage in our core in the past. And the fact of the matter is, if you think about a steel foundry, it's really easy to spot where the value is in that business, right? It's, there's millions of pounds worth of equipment. Now, nowadays, there's not many of those businesses left in the UK. There's a few in Sheffield, thankfully. But really, most of the value in business these days isn't in its factory equipment, its fixtures and fittings, its buildings. It's in its brand. It's in its reputation. It's in its know-how, its software, its code. In your case, it's in your brand and reputation and your know-how. And so people don't really think about that. And in part, we don't really think about that because the banks are not thinking about that. If you and I went to the bank and said, hey, we've got a great business we need you to lend on, and it's a steel foundry in Sheffield, they go, yeah, I get that. We can do the cash flow projections. That's brilliant. But if we went along and we said, oh, we've got a fantastic new idea, we're going to write a book and do a film all about a young boy who lives under the stairs and is a wizard, they'd go, yeah, maybe, see you soon. But the most valuable innovation that's come out of the UK probably ever is Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Now, think about it. It's a creation of the mind. It's a book. That's copyright. That's copyright. And then it becomes a film. There's a lot of computer graphics. It becomes a really successful film. It gets a brand, and it gets a rate. And we're protecting all of that through the software involved. We're protecting all of that through intellectual property. And it's much more difficult for people to get their head around because it's not solid. It's not something I can bump into and scratch my leg on. It's something that's in the ether to some extent. So and there's been a go on.
Sorry, John. Yeah? Sorry, carry on. Sorry.
No, there's been a substantial shift in the last 50 years, so 40 years even. If you look at the most valuable companies 40 years ago, they were all heavy in fixtures and fittings. They were all automotive companies and the like. And now, of course, if you look at most valuable companies in the world. They don't have any fixtures and fittings or anything you can bump into. It's all Google and Facebook and all the rest of the Apples and so on and so forth.
Sure. Yeah. So someone like Harry Potter, if I decided, right, I'm going to start a new business selling Harry Potter T-shirts, for example, I can't do that because of their intellectual property. Well, I can try it, but I'll probably get in trouble by taking their brand and their trademark and so on. And that's basically how it works, isn't it? It's protecting you.
Completely, Steve. But you've illustrated another really important about intellectual property, and that is it's so easy to spell.
Yeah.
There was a film in India called Harry Potter, Hari, and funny enough, it was about a young child wizard, etc. And it's so easy to copy, and it's so easy to take. It's not that easy to take a steel foundry in the night, is it?
No.
But it's so easy to take your Steve Mills name and reputation and start another website with exactly the same stuff on there. And just, this happened to a client of mine the other day. They got a phone call and they said, "Oh, you owe us some money for the furniture." And they were like, "Well, no, we've not renovated for 10 years. No. And there was a business, identical name, identical brand and logo, just set down the road. And,
wow.
They were in danger of their credit rating going up the Swanee because somebody else was stealing their brand, essentially.
So somebody had ordered a load of furniture and somehow in the confusion or deliberately, they'd...
Exactly.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We phoned them up and they were, there it is, this the name of the company. I'm not going to say what it is. And they phoned it up and they were getting quite antsy about it because the payment was late,
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Nightmare.
But that's not their biggest risk. Their biggest risk is that their clients start to get confused and start to give business to the other person, and their reputation starts to slip because maybe it's not at the same standard, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that. So why is it from what you've said, I think I sort of know the answer to this, to be honest, but just for everybody, so everybody's clear, why is it essential really for small businesses to protect themselves?
Well, I think it's about those issues. And, not everybody, it's like insurance, not everybody likes to think through what might go wrong. But I think, Steve, if you think about your business and you say, okay, I don't think either of us are planning to retire at all, but, one day I'm going to sell the business on. Well, what are you selling? You're selling on your reputation, your customer relationships. Arguably as well, Steve, and I've heard you say this before, you're selling your email list, your contact list, your client details. Now, that's all, and intellectual property is a subset of intangible assets. So intellectual property we can talk about, but it's your intangibles, your intangible assets. And if you don't protect those, and an employee leaves the business and runs off with your email list and starts to sneak them away to some other business, that devalues your business. Whereas if you've got some protections around that, and there are some protections I can talk about you could use, then you're a little bit stronger, and the value of your business is more wholesome and more likely to be appreciated by a potential buyer. So it's about retaining the value in the business. It's about identifying the key parts of your business, protecting them, and retaining and growing that value.
Yeah, fantastic. It seems to me, you mentioned insurance there. It's almost like an insurance, isn't it? When you buy insurance, you don't actually need insurance. You only need it if something goes wrong. And in a way, it's the same thing. I need it to protect myself. And that's a really important thing. So what are the sort of common perceptions really around it? I mentioned right at the beginning, most people listening, I think, will have heard of IP and have some level of knowledge of it. But I think for me, I'm one of those people who've sort of heard of it. I know about it. It's probably something I ought to do, but I've never done it. So what are am I typical or what's the...
No. I mean, I work with a bunch of IP experts around the world, and a couple of them just did this survey. And I know from personal experience, I've got an MBA from a top business school in the UK. I know somebody who's doing an MBA at the moment at a top business school. have you been taught IP? Was I taught IP? No.
No.
If you go to a business school in the States, can you get an MBA qualification from one of the best business schools in the States without taking a class on IP? Yes. Now, that to me is utterly shocking. But so therefore, it's no surprise that you or I, well, anybody else doesn't really know that much about it, because we're not taught about it. And it's not really something that anybody's telling us about. Whereas if you go to China, kids who haven't even started secondary school know more about IP than your average PhD in this country.
Wow.
And in 2008, their premier said, well, the future of world trade is intellectual property. We're going to do this, and here's our 25-year plan. And you can accuse them of stealing IP and all the rest of it, but they've got a fantastic strategic plan, which they've executed on. Yeah. I spoke to a really good friend of mine who does a lot of work with Amazon the other day, and she said, oh yeah, I do a lot of work on trademarks. I said, well, come on. She says, well, you can't get listed on Amazon unless you've got they really want you to have a registered trademark, because that way they're pretty confident that you're genuine. Yeah. And there's less chance of counterfeiting, and you can respond to counterfeiting, because of course, Amazon's reputation has to be that they're not selling counterfeit goods. There's nothing worse than you and I to buy, an electric lamp that gives us an electric shock. Yeah. So they need to be protecting their customers, their brand. So they are looking to see whether you've got a registered trademark, because that helps them on their brand registry, which helps with their reputation to go to the authorities and say, well, we're doing what we can. We're trying to reduce counterfeit. So, you have the rights in your name, Steve Mills, or brand mastery, or whatever it is. In theory, you've got the rights to talk about the use of that as an unregistered right. So with my client the other day, where this other business is set up, copied their logo, copied their name, etc., and then they got the sort of bill for the furniture, we were able to demonstrate unregistered rights going back, even football adverts at football stadiums, and going back in time, 7 years, and we got a fantastic bank of evidence to show that they had the rights to use this name. If you like, sort of common law rights in the UK, you get common law rights for usage. And so, as long as there's no other infringement, you're not infringing somebody else with that, you can claim the common law right. So there's some fundamental intellectual property rights that you could practice today without really spending too much money. But yeah, to answer your question, most people don't really have a lot of knowledge about IP, and hence there's a lot of misperception. If you listen to the press, they'll be talking about patenting a trademark, which is utter gobbledygook. The Times often sort of writes sort of such sentences, and it's really about education. It's really about, and that's why I'm so passionate about just trying to get these basics across to business. Yeah, businesses like yours and your clients. A lot of them can benefit from some basic fundamentals. Yeah. Sorry.
So one of the things, if I'm understanding correctly, is that if I've been doing this, whatever this is, for quite some time, and then somebody new comes along and says, right, I'm doing this now, and I'm doing it in your company name or your brand name or your product name. Yeah, I've got a program, John, called the Results Mastery. So if Fred Blogg sets up something called Results Mastery, the fact that I've been doing it for 27 years would help in any court case or situation I got myself into. Is that the case?
Fundamentally, as long as at the time of you starting out there was nobody else using that who can claim the same sort of rights. But if the key question to answer is, do customers recognize you and your business for that name? And if that's the case, you've got, in the UK at least, you've got some common law rights around about the usage of that name. Yeah, that's really important to know. So therefore, if we look at those names and we determine you actually do have unregistered rights, you can start to use the letters TM, stands for trademark, TM, capital T, capital M. Yeah, it's usually used as a suffix, after the name.
You see smaller letters, things, don't you? Yeah, sort of Adidas TM. I remember on their bags years ago, they always had that.
Yeah, and you can use that. That's in the UK law. That's you saying, keep off the grass. That's my name. Okay. I know I've got unregistered rights in that name. And the only difference is if you then go to register it, which you may have the right to do. We need to do some searches to make sure it's clear, and you get it approved by the UK Intellectual Property Office. Then you can use that R in a circle, which I associate, I don't know why, with Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola registered trademark.
Registered.
The R means registered.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So anybody, again, I'm just making sure I've got this right. Anybody can put, the trademark TM after their product. Let's call it, and then if they want to take it to the next level, they can register it as long as nobody else has already done so. Is that the case?
That's absolutely right, Steve. With a caveat on the TM, I can't just set up and put Steve Mills TM today, because you've got, I'd have to do a quick search, and a quick search would show that you're using that name, and so I shouldn't do that. I should think of a different name, John Pryor Business Advisory or something, TM. It'd be fine, because I don't think anybody else has got that, for example.
No.
But yeah, within reason. And then the other one, Steve, which I'd be very keen on you using and your clients using, is copyright. So check after we finished, and I can't remember whether I checked your website. I think you have on some of your websites and some of your material, but not on all. Copyright. And the symbol there is a C in a circle.
Yeah.
So anything that you've created that's original, that's a process, or even this conversation, and when you write your book and so on, that's copyright Steve Mills, 2022. And you should put that on everything you produce, because in my game, in my world, it's actually just, the last thing you want to do is to get into a dispute. So this is all about sending the signals that say, actually, you know what you're doing. You know what this guy's on top of his IP. He keeps putting that C in a circle, and he's got TM and everything.
I'm not going to mess with him. Yeah. I get that. I really do. When I'm doing this, when I'm protecting myself as a marketer, so would it be good enough for me to put a copyright logo on my website, or would I need to do it at a level where I copyrighted each and every blog post? What would the situation be with something like that? Because I don't want people, going and copying my website. I heard an amazing story many years ago. I won't mention who, but a firm of solicitors who thought it was a really good idea to just copy, literally, copy and paste another solicitor's website onto a website of their own. You'd have thought they might have known better, wouldn't you? But that's what they did. So anyway, but
that's unbelievable. That is unbelievable. Oh my word.
You understand, somebody who shouldn't know what they're doing, but that's what they did. So my example with my website, do I need a copyright on my website, or do I need it almost on every page?
I'd put it on every bottom of every page. It's an unregistered right. You don't, as with the use of TM, they're not registered.
No,
but they're free to grant. You have those rights if you can prove that you wrote Harry Potter, whenever it was written, probably 20 years ago now, and that was your original script, then you've got every right to put copyright on it. It's the same way that your website has unique content on there, unique imagery, unique videos and interviews and copy, text. That's your copyright. Steve Mills 2022, and it's free to grant in the UK. So you should put that, in my world, on every page, and I would put it on your blog as well. Because there's, it's your creation, it's your original creation, and it's just sending those signals. And if I'm coming to buy your business and it doesn't have that on, and people have started to copy it and use it, it devalues it for me.
It does. Yeah. Brilliant. That's great advice. So what are the sort of, I don't know, top three takeaways? What are the three things that people could do right now to sort of take the first step to make sure that they're protected?
Yeah, I think, and it comes back to a question you asked earlier, which I may not have answered fully, is what ask yourself the question, what are my most valuable assets? So and you can phrase that, and you can contextualize that by what drives your competitive advantage? And then even further dig down into that and say, okay, what would my competitors most like to steal? What is it that they look at and go, that would move us further forward and we'd win more business if I took that from Steve? Results mastery, I fancy one of those. I'm going to go and set up one of those programs myself. And start to think about it in that context. What would they most like to steal? I was fascinated this weekend that Red Bull Formula One was sort of accusing Aston Martin of stealing their design. They changed their design on Friday. And it became very similar to the Red Bull car. And a whole sort of kerfuffle started that they'd stolen, actually not stolen, they'd recruited a couple of their aerodynamicists, 8 to 12 months ago, and they'd taken their know-how in trade secrets across and set up. So, what makes a marginal sort of fractional difference in Formula One is how slick your aerodynamics are, and you get the best guys and you get them across to your team and you get that nanosecond advantage. That's a competitive advantage. That's something your competitors most want to steal.
Okay.
Think about it in that context, number one. So what is it that drives a competitive advantage? What would people most like to steal, number one? And then the second point, which sounds a bit trite, but if you snooze, you've got every chance of losing it. If you don't get on this sooner rather than later, in my world, it's going to bite you, and it's going to bite you potentially quite hard as well.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, Steve, get a plan in place now. I know you've got a busy business, and I know there's everything else going on, servicing clients and winning new clients and getting the invoices out, etc. But put a plan in place over time, over the next 6 months, of doing some of the basic stuff. So TM, copyright. There's also designs and know-how and trade secrets that can be protected for free within your business. And then start to think about, building up, maybe registering the name in due course and so on and so forth. But don't wait. Put a plan in place is my point. And start to think about what's valuable and how you can best protect it.
That was such fantastic advice, and it's definitely, I assure you, John, it's definitely advice that I'm going to take, and just take those first steps to making sure that I'm as protected as I can be. So if people want to get in touch with you, because I always think in business, we cannot, it is an absolute physical impossibility for us all to be experts in everything. And yet when we start off in business, you mentioned, use the example of the university, you can do a business studies degree and nobody's ever going to touch IP. It's the same, by the way, with sales. I don't get that.
It is. You do completely,
in marketing, you cannot do a degree in sales. I don't, I just don't get it. But anyway, if that's the case, and we all need a variety of, I need HR expertise, I need IT expertise, I need marketing and sales expertise, and I need IP expertise in my business, because I'm not an expert at all those things. Apart from the operational expertise, doing the work, I'm good at doing the work, doing the accounts or cutting the grass or, cutting people's hair or whatever it is I do. But there's loads of skills involved in being running a business, and often we don't have those skills. So it's always good, whilst I understand, there are things I can do myself, it's always good to be able to speak to and get some advice from an expert like yourself. So if people wanted to do that, want to find out more about how you can help people, where should they go? What should they do? Could you let everybody know, please?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that, Steve. Yeah, so I'm more than happy to speak to any of your clients at all, and give some sort of free guidance and get them going on this whole area. And you can find me on my website, which is www.exaltip.com. So EXALTIP.com. Or you can drop me an email to john@exaltip.com. EXALTIP.com.
Thank you very much, Sean. That's been brilliant, really, really useful. I hope everybody's enjoyed it, and I hope you're going to take action. Because, you know, I often say to people on my podcasts and on my videos, you know, this is not about watching a video and thinking, oh, yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it? No, it's about taking action. You know, John's provided you with some great ideas, ways in which you can protect your business. You know, you need to do that, not just you know, go about your you know, the other things that you need to do. You need to allocate some time and take the first steps to taking action to protect yourself more than you're protected right now. So thank you ever so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. I look forward to sharing with you further ideas and ways in which you can grow your business, improve your business, and so on. Don't forget to sign up to my YouTube channel or sign up to my podcast. This is going out on both of those things. And again, a big thank you for your time today. Thanks very much for listening.